It's Friday, November 28th. This is CTV at 6. Here's what's making news tonight. Is Black Friday still the biggest deal of the year? We go looking. Holiday shoppers get an early gift at the pumps as fuel prices dip.
Expect a mix of snow and rain to arrive late Sunday, then a second system to watch for later next week.
Live from our Maritime's News Center, this is CTV News at 6. Here is Todd Battis.
Good evening. We begin again this evening with tariffs and softwood lumber. Last night in our report, we heard from a New Brunswick Marketing Board representative who told us the Twin Rivers Mill in Edmundston was closing indefinitely. Today, the company corrected us, saying it's absolutely not true, that its operations are just running to capacity and isn't taking any wood right now. CTV's Laura Brown has more on the situation in the province's woodlots.
Twin Rivers Edmundston Mill is a fixture on the city's scape and its community, and it's not closed, said company executives. There was some confusion after a memo went out to suppliers asking them not to send pulpwood for an undetermined period. But a company vice president stated it's because the mill is operating full. The company manages its inventory of fiber input, including pulpwood and chips, for its Edmundston pulp mill on an ongoing basis, and in doing so, will from time to time change its shipment receiving schedule from longtime partners and suppliers as space and inventory dictates. It can also be a safety issue, accepting too much and allowing it to pile up. The confusion and misinformation speaks to the challenges facing the industry. There's ongoing concerns about the impact the U.S. countervailing duties and tariffs, which amount to 45%, are having on an industry that's the backbone of the province. But the mayor of Carlton North says so far, businesses and people in his area have been resilient.
You know, they work through things and they've been through highs and lows before, but this what's happening in the United States right now is really unfortunate.
He says a quota system could be the answer, allowing a certain amount to enter the states tariff and duty-free.
But at the end of the day, you need certainty. Like there has to be some negotiation towards us having an outcome that the business people wake up in the morning and they know exactly what they have for a market.
Woodlot owner Andrew Clark has been working in the woods since 1966. He says this year has been one of the toughest he's ever seen.
It is the lack of markets, which are the result of the tremendous uncertainty that the industry is in now because of the actions of the American government. And sales are maybe 50% of what they were even last year.
He feels some of the federal government's new supports announced this week could help, but that the current situation isn't sustainable. Laura Brown, CTV News, Fredericton.
Gas station operators in New Brunswick warned the province's plan to remove the carbon cost adjuster would drive many of them out of business. Well, today, the body that oversees energy prices ruled in their favor. In the past hour, Premier Susan Holt issued a statement expressing her frustration at that decision. CTV's Avery McRae has more.
The cost of the carbon adjuster will officially be removed in New Brunswick come Monday. But that doesn't mean your next trip to the pumps will be any cheaper.
The board concludes that it has the necessary jurisdiction and considers it advisable to make an interim order increasing the wholesale margin by an amount equal to today's value of the cost of carbon adjuster.
The carbon adjuster was implemented in 2022 as a way to help pay for the cost of federal clean fuel regulations. During her election campaign, Premier Susan Holt pledged to scrap the measure. But today, New Brunswick's Energy and Utilities Board invoked a temporary new charge that will be equal to the soon-to-be-removed carbon adjuster. It's being done to protect the province's fuel providers.
We'd be losing about approximately a cent a litre for every litre we sold. And obviously, we'd still have costs to cover.
Chris Schulten owns 9 gas stations in the province. Fuel retailers had previously warned a quarter of New Brunswick's gas stations could close if they were forced to absorb the added costs. While today is a win, Schulten notes it's not for long.
As of January 1, the cost of carbon will increase again by federal mandate. And the interim amount that was fixed today will likely bear the brunt of the cost increases, but we may not be able to recover all our costs.
Today's ruling from the board was only temporary, with a promise made for a more fulsome review to be undertaken. A final decision is expected in February. For those who worry about the transparency of what costs are being passed off, Atlantica Center for Energy President Michelle Robichaud says,
it's an extremely complex process and it's really difficult to assess, but I believe that the independent board certainly has the tools necessary in order to make sure that they resolve this issue fairly.
In a statement, Premier Susan Holt expressed frustration with the board's undoing of the province's efforts to give consumers relief. She says she will continue to push for fair and transparent pricing at the pumps. Avery McRae, CTV News, St. John.
There was, however, a break for all motorists in the Maritimes today. The price of a litre dropped for both gas and diesel. CTV's Jonathan McGuinness now on whether it might last.
The numbers are rolling a bit slower at the pumps today in Nova Scotia.
It's a good thing. Always nice to get lower prices.
Hearing gas prices were dropping, motorist Mike Duda held off on filling up his vehicle.
Yeah, I don't have to fill up too often, so I watch the price and go when it's going down.
Now sitting at $1.39 a litre, regular self-serve fell by 6.1 cents. Diesel dropped by 6.5 cents. The minimum price now $1.66.1. For diesel, this is the second decrease this week. On Wednesday, the Nova Scotia Energy Board used the interrupter clause to bring the price down by 7.1 cents.
Until we get some major winter cold blast or there's some other geopolitical issue or there is absolutely no peace deal whatsoever between Russia and Ukraine, look for these diesel prices to remain pretty much where they are.
That's great news for truckers.
Trucking is the economic backbone of Atlantic Canada.
The president of the Atlantic Provinces Trucking Association says diesel is the industry's second biggest expense. There is a fuel surcharge in place that requires the shipper to cover the cost of major price increases. Chris McPhee says that also comes into play when prices drop.
This mechanism helps keep our companies stable, but it also means that anytime diesel prices do fall by, like this margin, those benefits flow directly to shippers, and in turn, they should be passed along to consumers.
In PEI and New Brunswick, gas and diesel both went down as well. Petroleum analyst Dan McTagg says motorists don't need to rush to the gas station to fill up. He says he expects the price to remain stable and maybe even drop a little bit more over the next couple weeks. Jonathan McGuinness, CTV News, Halifax.
And we'll talk prices with the Federal Minister of Finance after 6:30, and there's more reporting on this at ctvnewsatlantic.ca. A man has died after a crash in central Cape Breton. The RCMP says a single vehicle crash happened on the Trans-Canada Highway yesterday morning in Aberdeen. Police say a car left the road and went down an embankment, then hit a tree. The driver, a 62-year-old man from Mabu, was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigation in this case is ongoing this evening. Black Friday used to mean, big deals, even bigger lineups. But with retailers extending sales, has the event lost some of its luster? CTV's Vanessa Wright was up early to hit the stores and speak with shoppers.
Black Friday started bright and early at this Dartmouth sporting goods shop.
It's all about the layers.
Shoppers bundled up for a deal. It helped that the first 50 people in line received up to $200 in gift cards.
I'm here to get the deals, hopefully. Just things for my husband who's into hunting and fishing, so it's all about his Christmas gift.
I just came with my group to hang out with them as well and see what all I can find in there for Christmas gifts.
Some lined up for hours before doors even opened.
People still love Black Friday. You'll still see crowds at select malls for select stores, but it's just not as big in terms of that mad rush like it was maybe 10 years ago.
That's thanks to the internet. Winder says online shopping continues to dominate consumer habits.
There's great deals online. Even the Black Friday deals start the night before online, so there's less of a reason to go out to the store. You may still want to go to the store if you want to touch and feel the item, or maybe you like going out to the store. It's a ritual with your family.
That was the case for some people at this Costco who were on the hunt for holiday gifts and everyday essentials.
A lot of Christmas shopping, food for Christmas, that kind of thing.
I don't like to do the online shopping. I like to know what I'm getting.
But with shopping, especially online, Winder cautions people to beware of scams when rifling through deals.
There are a number of scams that come up this time of year where companies try to impersonate other websites. Be very careful with your credit information too. You know, if someone wants to go offline and do a deal, be very careful. That's a red flag. There's lots of red flags. So I guess, keep the emotion out of it, be rational. And if something feels a little different, it probably is a scam.
And this is just the start of holiday shopping. Tomorrow is Small Business Saturday, a day to shop local. And of course, people are gearing up for Cyber Monday. And we're hearing that it may be kind of busy. Todd?
Hydrostone Market, Vanessa, right, thank you. Home to several of those small businesses. All right, let's make this a CTV web poll. And we're asking, do you participate in Black Friday shopping? Your options are yes, both in-store and online. Yes, but only online. Yes, but only in-store. Yes, but I only shop local. No, I don't shop Black Friday at all. I think we've pretty much covered all the options there. CTVNewsAtlantic.ca. Let's hear from you. There's a live look at downtown Fredericton right now. That is Officers Square. Nobody there, Kayla Mitchell. Must mean they're all at the shops on Queen Street, perhaps.
Could be.
1 degree.
Yeah.
It's a cool evening, but we're going to talk about some white stuff, which might be in the picture for a lot of us come next week.
Yeah, so we started talking about this yesterday, and I made up this little bit of a board talking about why, if you were reading into specific snow numbers at this point for that weather system coming in Tuesday night into Wednesday of next week, why you're likely to see some change on a day-by-day basis with those numbers. And we did see a shift in sort of the trend with how that weather system is going to move past today in some of the forecast guidance for it. And that was a shift towards the west, which could bring more of a wintry mix into Nova Scotia, maybe push some of the heavier snow a little bit further towards the north and west, towards areas like northern Nova Scotia, southern areas of New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island. So let's recap again what's going to happen here as we move through the first part of next week. It's a low pressure system that initially starts around Texas and then makes its way through the southeastern United States to the eastern seaboard, where it runs up along the border of between some colder air. It's over the continent. It's that colder air that's driving things like the intense snow squalls right now in place over southern Ontario, and the warmer, milder air out over the Atlantic. It's going to strengthen the storm system as it approaches, and now the pass looks like it's going to be a little bit closer in towards the Atlantic coastal areas of Nova Scotia. So as I just mentioned, that could push some of the heavier snow. It could be, ballpark 15 to 30, 35 centimeters up towards southern areas of New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island, and northern areas of Nova Scotia, where Atlantic coastal areas of Nova Scotia could get into more of that wintry mix. So maybe initially starting as some accumulating snow, but then turning through some ice pellets, freezing rain, and rain. Now, there's still potential to see further change with this weather system because, remember, it doesn't even really get going out of Texas until Monday. So, again, not uncommon to see this type of variance with it this far out. But again, that Tuesday night into Wednesday time frame, it is the time frame next week to watch. Keep a close eye on in the forecast. Now, for this evening and tonight, we still have a scattered mixture of some showers and some snow showers making their way through. This is going to begin to wind down as we move towards and after midnight. I will have more in the forecast, though, coming up a little bit later on, Todd.
So now, if I read you right, shovels at the ready for everybody.
Yes, that's a good plan.
Yeah.
Whatever you need to do, make sure you're nice and prepared for the potential first big snow of December. Might want to start doing that this weekend.
Maybe small Saturday shopping is looking for a shovel. We'll see you later in the show. Thank you. We've heard a lot lately of stories about the rise in crime in Moncton. Now, one small business is doing something about it. CTV's Derek Haggett explains.
Hassam Saif al-Din came to Moncton in 2017 with next to nothing. Now he runs a successful grocery store, but lately he's been a victim of crime. When he arrived last Friday, the window of one of the delivery vans was smashed.
And we found our car. It was here in the parking lot. We found it's broken, and someone broke it and damaged the glass.
Copper wire in the air conditioning units stripped out, and there's been break-ins. His next-door neighbor wants to help. The manager of this pawn shop has started a community watch program for businesses on Mountain Road, saying crime in the area is on the rise.
And in response, I started a community watch page so that we could stick together and report these incidents so that if someone's going from store to store, we know before they get to us.
The plan? Form a communication link so businesses can observe and report and notify one another when trouble is on the way.
So nothing vigilante style for certain.
There's been lots of trouble lately at this smoke shop just up the road. The front window was smashed last weekend and goods stolen. It'll cost over $1,000 to replace. And someone recently broke in through the roof. They're interested in joining the neighborhood watch group.
If you go down from Mountain Road to other end, you're gonna see at least 3 or 4 businesses damaged overnight.
Saif Al-Din, clearly frustrated, is also interested.
We should because no one help us here. We should be together as a neighborhood here to protect ourselves.
7 different businesses have already signed up. Hassam Saif Al-Din has a message for anybody who wants to rob the store. If they're that desperate, they should come see him. He'll do what he can to help, and he'll even provide a little bit of food. Derek Haggett, CTV News, Moncton.
Get the Maritime's top stories, breaking news alerts, and watch live. Download the CTV News app.
It's almost 3 years since Ryan Sawyer was killed when a bouncer put him in a chokehold outside the Halifax Alehouse. The government says changes are coming as a result of the death, but his family says the province isn't going far enough. CTV's Callum Smith reports.
It could have been prevented. It could have been prevented.
That's Ryan Sawyer's family after a judge found Alexander Levy guilty of manslaughter earlier this week. Justice James Chipman found that the bouncer choked Sawyer for approximately 2 minutes after he and his brother were kicked out of the Halifax Alehouse nearly 3 years ago. Since then, the Nova Scotia government promised regulations for bouncers.
The work that was underway under the department was very much influenced by what happened to Ryan Sawyer.
With operating licenses on the line, aside from requiring criminal record checks, bouncers will need training.
Having additional ways to, again, de-escalate something and an incident from taking place.
Use of force?
Absolutely, yeah. So that would all be part of the training.
But for Sawyer's family, it doesn't go far enough.
I am going to continue to push forward until proper regulation is put in place, because what they are proposing is nothing more than just a Band-Aid.
The Sawyers wonder why Nova Scotia won't follow other jurisdictions. Ryan Sawyer's family says Nova Scotia's proposed legislation is a good first step, but that there is a big gap, and that is that, unlike other provinces, Nova Scotia will not require individual bouncers to be licensed.
In a way, it could be a great thing. In a way, it could make it a little more difficult for licensed establishments that want to hire individuals, quote unquote, in-house, as opposed to just reaching out to a company and then the company would deal with all that.
This private security company owner has offered specific training for over 2 decades when it comes to bars and nightclubs. He calls Sawyer's death a tragedy.
Part of how regulations are upheld and how they're enforced, there'll be those regular check-ins with those establishments to ensure that what is the list of all your door staff employees? Do they have the training? You know, employers will have record of that, and that's a really important step to that enforcement piece.
Nova Scotia's updated Liquor Control Act takes effect June 1st next year. Callum Smith, CTV News, Halifax.
Time for a break on CTV2 tonight. Still ahead, partly cloudy with scattered flurries. Kayla Mitchell returns with the full forecast. And next, the latest from that devastating apartment fire in Hong Kong. We'll be right back. The death toll from this week's fire in Hong Kong has now reached 128 people, and hundreds more are still missing. Rescuers are searching apartments for survivors. NBC's Janice Mackey-Frere with the latest.
This horrific fire in Hong Kong burned out of control and rapidly. Videos showing the 7 high-rise buildings engulfed by flames. Officials said the death toll rose today as rescue teams are now searching for up to 200 people still missing. For 2 days, firefighters have been working around the clock to control the massive blaze. Videos showed the flames spreading up 32 stories, then leaping from one building to the next with no warning. The 8 towers were home to nearly 5,000 residents, many of them now at temporary shelters, clinging to pets and the few belongings they could take. Investigators are piecing together how the blaze could have spread so quickly, homing in on polystyrene boards used during a renovation as likely fueling it. The intense heat causing construction netting and bamboo scaffolding to also burn. 3 men from a construction company have been arrested. Hong Kong security chief saying today they can't rule out the possibility that more bodies will be found. Officials haven't yet determined what started the blaze, but they say those foam boards, which were put over the windows during the renovation, may have helped accelerate the flames. This disaster has stunned people across Hong Kong, as donations are now pouring in from around the world for the families who've lost everything. Janice Paki-Frere, NBC News, Okinawa, Japan.
Well, December's right around the corner. Before then, a chilly last weekend of November ahead. Kaylin Mitchell has the details after this. Kaylin, somebody will let me know, of course, but it's hard to believe that that shot, that lobster trap tree, pretty good crowd there, has been in a Hallmark Christmas movie. There must have been one made along the South Shore that features that.
Oh, and if there hasn't, that's a huge missed opportunity. That's beautiful out there, huh?
And a beautiful evening. It's calm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, no, there are some scattered showers and flurries drifting through, so every once in a while you might get into one of those. But most of that is supposed to begin to wind down as we move later into tonight and into the overnight hours. We do have a couple things, of course, to talk about, though, in the weather. It is going to be getting a little bit colder for this weekend, a little bit of a chill in the air. Not directly related to the polar vortex, though. Right. The air, though, did break down out of northern parts of the country, so we can actually take a look at that, and we're going to talk a little bit about the polar vortex as well. So this initial air out of the north, that's shaded here and through the blues, really the core of that polar vortex that we were talking about. That's still up in the north, and it's highlighted here in through the pinks as well as purples coming down through areas of Nunavut, and then as we move through this weekend, settling towards parts of northern Manitoba, northern Ontario, and northern Quebec. Now, once it's in place there, it is going to linger through next week. So anytime that we get into west to northwest wind here in the Maritimes, we're likely to see some of that chillier air move in. Now, it looks like what's going to happen by around Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, which is one of the reasons why that weather system coming up Tuesday into Wednesday does look like it is going to be a significant wintry mix for the region. And then following directly in behind it, we should switch back over to a west and northwest wind, and that'll bring colder air back into place for the end of next week as well as the following weekend. So overall, that first part of December looking like it's going to be a little bit on the colder side here in the Maritimes. So taking a look at our timeline for cloud cover and precipitation, a little flecks here of greens and blues showing up around the region. Those are those scattered showers and flurries moving through. You will notice that by the time we head towards and after midnight that a lot of that kind of disappears here off of the weather map. Start of the day for tomorrow is going to be cold around the Maritimes, partly cloudy conditions. And throughout the day on Saturday, a mix of sun and cloud with a chance of some flurries where the blustery west wind is coming in off of ocean water. So that'll be off of the Bay of Fundy, Northumberland Strait, Gulf of St. Lawrence. So some flurries still possible for parts of Prince Edward Island, areas of Nova Scotia for tomorrow. New Brunswick should mostly just be a mix of sun and cloud. Speaking of the winds in the forecast for Saturday, out of the west and northwest, but gusty, gusts up between 30 and 50 kilometers per hour, just making it feel that much more chilly. Low temperatures in the forecast for tonight for New Brunswick will be falling into a range of around -5 to -3 for most communities, down to around -2 tonight for many in Prince Edward Island, and a lot of low temperatures for Nova Scotia between -2 and +2. Here's a look at the highs for Saturday in the northwest of New Brunswick. Mostly around -1, and in the northeast between around 0 and 2 degrees. Down through central and southern areas of New Brunswick, most of the high temperatures tomorrow between around 0 and 2, including 1 at Fredericton, St. John, and Moncton. Prince Edward Island for tomorrow with high temperatures in the low single digits. 2 degrees there, Tignish, Summerside, Charlottetown, Montague, and 3 at Surrey. In Cape Breton, it's high temperatures between 1 and 4 degrees, including 3 at Sydney, 1 at Bedeque, and 4 at Port Hawkesbury. Near 3 degrees for New Glasgow and Antigonish for tomorrow, 4 at Canso, Ecum, 3 at Sheet Harbour, 2 at Truro and Amherst. Halifax for tomorrow, the high temperature near 4 degrees, and 3 at Chester and Lunenburg. The Annapolis Valley with high temperatures, chilly, near 2 on Saturday, and on the South Shore and in the southwest of Nova Scotia, 2 at Bridgewater, 4 at Liverpool and Shelburne, and 3 at Yarmouth, so low single digits. Snow outlook, this is for Sunday night into Monday morning. Potential of 5 centimeters of snow, up to 5 centimeters of snow at lower elevations in the northwest and New Brunswick, 10 to 15 centimeters in the more mountainous terrain. Taking a look at the 7-day forecast, that mixture of snow and rain coming through for New Brunswick Sunday night, and then finishing as a chance of flurries on Monday, and then potential snow, could be heavy snow for southern areas of New Brunswick Tuesday night into Wednesday. Cloudy periods follow for Thursday of next week. Friday, mix of sun and cloud. You can see the temperatures colder towards the end of next week. For Nova Scotia, in the forecast coming up on Sunday, increasing cloudiness during the day with rain arriving Sunday night. That rain clearing out on Monday. On Tuesday, it's Tuesday night, we get into that wintry mix. It could carry on into Wednesday. Cloudy periods in the forecast for Thursday and Friday, a mix of sun and cloud. And for Prince Edward Island in the outlook, snow turning over to rain Sunday night into Monday, finishing as some showers. And then Tuesday night, maybe snow, becoming heavy snow for Prince Edward Island into Wednesday. Cloudy periods in the forecast for Thursday and Friday. Todd.
Okay, we'll see you towards the end of the show. Thank you, Kaylin. Next, our conversation with the federal finance minister. Stay with us.
Happy Friday, and make sure to join us Monday. We'll give you another chance to win a $250 gift card to St. Louis Bar and Grill.
And Merry Texmas continues.
And next week is Virgin Radio lights up the community.
Oh, welcome back. Canada got some good news today. The economy topped expectations and grew 2.6% in the third quarter. That certainly pleases our guest tonight. François-Philippe Champagne is the Federal Minister of Finance. Joins us in studio. Good to see you.
Thank you very much.
People might have noticed in the wide shot there, you're wearing your boots. There was a reason for that. You spent some time at the Naval Base in Halifax today. And
totally. I even got the coin so people can see it, you know, because, well, first of all, the Admiral is from a town not far from where I grew up. And secondly, I must say, Todd, I'm always impressed by the men and women who serve. Every town I go, I try to stop to thank them and look at the equipment and obviously, you know, listen to them. I saw... You know, what always amazed me is the talent, the know-how, the expertise of these men and women. I met a lot of contractors working on the ship, on the submarine. Actually, that's how I'm dressed like that. I was on the submarine.
You were on the submarine,
yes.
So...
dry dock, I must say.
Yes.
But being refurbished to go to sea.
They spend a lot of time in the dry docks, and they'll tell you that's why they need new ones, and I'm sure they're excited about that.
Well, it was good to just, you know, I always like when you talk, and, you know, I learned something this morning. You know, I was talking to a number of leaders in the community, business leader, and I like these numbers. I mean, your viewers probably heard that, but 2% of the Canadian population in Nova Scotia, 20% of the armed forces member are in the area, and 40% of the assets. So obviously, when you come to a place like Halifax, Nova Scotia, talking also with Premier Houston, you know, the defense investments we're making resonates. You know, I would say the whole budget resonates with Halifax, with Nova Scotia, with Atlantic Canada, because I think it talks to people. That's the feeling I had when, you know, at the airport, restaurants, hotel, when people stopped me. It resonates.
I want to get to the budget more specifically in a second, but those numbers that came out today, 2.6%. Economists had predicted 0.5% growth. There's still, you know, exports are down, but are we clear of recession? Because that word had been used a lot in the last few months.
That's not a word that's been used by others outside of Canada, I must say. You know, when you know, Canada presides the G7, if you look at the International Monetary Fund, they even say for this year and next year, Canada would have the second highest growth in the G7 after the United States of America. So I think what the numbers you're saying are consistent with some prediction. It shows to me that the Canadian economy is probably more resilient than perhaps some had expected, you know, despite the headwind. And let's be honest, there's some headwind, but Canada is not immune to that. I would say the speed, scope, and scale of change is quite unprecedented. I mean, some would go to 1945, some would go to the fall of the Berlin Wall. And it's not just, it's geopolitics, it's trade relationship, it's tariff, but it's also technology, you know, quantum and AI. And so when you have that, I just want to, I'll stop there, but even the International Monetary Fund was saying, you know, there's 2 countries in the world, not even 5. The IMF said there's 2 countries who can really weather that in this new world. It's Canada and Germany. So that's why when I say I'm confident about the Canadian economy, confident about our future, when you compare with other G7 nations, we're doing fairly well.
Okay, that's the global perspective.
Yeah.
But on the ground, Maritimers hear those numbers, 2.6% growth, which is above what was expected. They see the markets are increasing. They go to the grocery store, though, and their dollar is just going not as far as it used to. They're worried about whether they're going to have a job next week, given the uncertainty. What do you say to those folks who say, I don't care what the IMF says. I don't care what the forecasts are. I can barely afford to pay month to month.
And I would say if you look at the numbers that we presented, 75% was to do 2 things. One was to protect our sovereignty. The other one was for affordability, because I agree with you entirely. I mean, people care, you know, folks said, okay, I get it. This is where we're going. But what about the end of the week? What about the end of the month? That is, and that's why I say when people have asked me questions about the deficit number, I said, well, 75% of it was really to first protect our workers and our industries. You know, that's part of our Canadian values. You're right, if the numbers look good, but if you're in the lumber industry, it doesn't look so good. If you're in the steel manufacturing, it doesn't look good. If you're in aluminum, if you're in a canola farmer, even if you're a fisher, you know, your export market has been shrinking. So that's why we said we needed first to help people because that headwind I talked about, people feel it at the family table. They feel it on factory floor, they feel it in the fields. And so that was the response we had, was really give more money, leave more money in the pocket of people, so the tax cut, help first-time home buyers, invest in affordable housing, because the biggest measure of affordability is to be able to afford a home, you know, to find a home that would fit in your family budget. So that's why when you put all these things together, I would say first and foremost, I agree with you entirely, Todd. I was just putting in context, you know, where Canada is with the rest. Yeah. But folks who are watching are saying, okay, I get it. That's really affordability. That's number one. And then at the same time, they say, okay, but, you know, going back from the base once you've done that, make sure that we build the country we need and have the assets we need and defend our sovereignty, which was the other portion of the 75%.
You mentioned the deficit. The deficit, just over $78 billion for the year, almost double what it was the previous year. You mentioned generational spending to confront this tariff issue that we're dealing with in the United States. We had generational spending a couple years ago to get us through the pandemic. There's always a crisis looming. How much more can you keep stacking on deficits unless we start to repay that? Well, because there's always going to be something that's
But I would suggest to you, Todd, that, you know, most people would agree this is a very different world. I mean, the world you and I know is not going to be the world of our children. This is a different world.
Right, like I said, we're going to inherit this.
Well, I would say, but that's why you need to change course, because the speed and scale and scope of changes, like I said, most would go back to 1945. So you can compare with what we had. This is at a scale that we have never seen in a generation, and multi-generation. It's technology, it's trade, it's geopolitics. The world is completely different. People get it. It's a very different world. So when you say what we needed to do was to first use our fiscal power to build, you know, invest in infrastructure, invest in housing, invest in our productivity, you know, so that small business can start investing again, protect our sovereignty. But at the same time, what we need to do is, you know, people have been tightening their belt for a lot, you know, for many families have been doing that. So we needed to do the same in Ottawa. That's where we found the $60 billion of savings. And we said, most importantly for people watching, is that 3 years from now, we'll balance our operating spending with our revenues so that whatever we borrow from there is going to be for investment. So people say, well, when I go buy grocery, I spend. When I buy a house, I invest. It's kind of the same with government. And that's why we presented these numbers and say, this is the spending and this is the investment part. And in 3 years, we said, if we borrow, it's going to be to invest in our nation. That's the kind of thing which you need to grow the economy, because most of our infrastructure has been built in the 1970s, like pretty much in other G7 countries.
Well,
we're not different than many,
Yeah.
but we need to double down.
Investment is down. You know, that the private investment is down. And how much can you keep borrowing? How much deficit, you know, are we going to have? And will that impact these programs that Canadians have become very accustomed to?
Well, that's why we need to grow the economy, I would say. This is the best way to protect that. And I go back again to the fact that, you know, international institutions see 2 countries in the world, not even 5. They see 2. Germany and Canada, AAA credit rating, lowest debt to GDP, the second lowest deficit to GDP in the world, in the G7. That's Canada. We're in a very different fiscal position than anyone else. And therefore, what they say, if you have that fiscal power, they say smart country invest in themselves. So we need to create one Canadian economy. We need to make sure we become our own best customer. So I'm becoming to start, you know, buying Canada first, and I've been advocating that for many years.
Let me ask you on that about lumber, because, of course, in particular in New Brunswick, softwood lumber is an enormous part of the economy, as you know. The Natural Resources Minister says he's concerned about the sustainability of the aid package if this goes on. What they need is a deal, not necessarily money. And how long will you be able to fund an industry like that if we don't have our major?
Well, we need to structure demand. You know, the softwood lumber, sadly, and I have all the utmost respect. I spoke to many workers. I mean, they've gone through that so many times. I come from Shawinigan, and, you know, there's another gentleman there who told me this has gone for decades. I mean, it wasn't his
shingles.
Yeah, it wasn't his during his time was also. It just now with 45%, it's basically preventing any export to our southern neighbor. So what do you do? There's a number of things we can control. Let's be honest. I mean, no one can control the policy, necessarily the trade policy in Washington. Every country in the world, by the way, is paying a price to enter the U.S. market. Canada's no different, although we have a better deal than most, but not in softwood lumber. Like you said, it's very hurting. So what do we do? Like with Build Canada Homes, we said, well, we're going to use Canadian lumber. We're going to use Canadian steel. We need to start to become our own best customers and shore up a bit of demand. Can that make it all? No. Is that going to help to stabilize price? To those that I've spoken, they said, you know, this is going to help because you're increasing demand. And it's not just at the federal level, I'd say, Todd. I was with the Premier and I said, you know, we need to do it federally. We need to do it at provincial level, municipal. I spoke to Mayor Fillmore. And by the way, we need to do all of us, because the biggest power we have is the purchasing power. You and I and all the viewers, we can choose to buy Canadian. And if we do that, we're going to support the workers, we're going to support the mills, we're going to support also a Canadian innovation.
Minister, we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate your busy schedule, and we certainly appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me. It's always a great pleasure to be in town.
That's the Federal Finance Minister. We will take a timeout. We'll be right back. In health news, the makers of an infant formula say tests of products tied to a botulism outbreak show that all of the company's products may have been contaminated. CTV's Amanda Debison has more in tonight's edition of The Lifeline.
A troubling development in a botulism outbreak south of the border that has sickened dozens of babies. Tests of ByHeart infant formula show that all of the company's products may have been contaminated. Lab tests of 36 samples of formula from 3 different lots showed 5 contain the type of bacteria that can lead to the rare and potentially deadly illness. The company made the announcement on its website. At least 31 babies in 15 states who consumed ByHeart formula have been sickened since August. The company issued a nationwide recall 2 weeks ago, but officials have said some product remained on store shelves. Health Canada announced a safety warning 2 days later, but said there's no reports of illnesses in this country. Children who move more not only get fitter, according to new research, they also get happier. A new study finds children who were more fit and had less belly fat tended to have less symptoms of depression and anxiety. Researchers at Northeastern University in Boston looked into the rise in obesity rates and mental health disorders. They found that especially in children between the ages of 8 and 11 who met the recommended level of physical activity not only had less belly and back fat, but they also reported fewer symptoms of anxiety and depression. These findings suggest that supporting children so they can stay active may be an effective tool to ensure both their physical and mental well-being. Finally, researchers at the University of BC gave a live demonstration of a one-of-a-kind body swap robot, offering new insight into how the brain keeps us upright.
The idea is not to think that balance deficits and falls are one single cause. There's a number of causes, and then we need to be able to address them. And this device becomes, a central tool to allow us to make advances.
The robot can subtly change how a body feels, making it seem heavier, lighter, or slightly delayed. That helps researchers study how the brain responds to shifts in balance. The goal is to better understand and reduce the risks of falling, especially for older adults. With Health and Medical News, I'm Amanda Debison for the Lifeline.
Our business report is next.
With Aaron and Peter. DIYs. What if you tried a DIY and completely failed? Monday at 6.
And Move's 20K holiday continues. A keyword coming up for you 6 a.m. Monday.
A big week on the markets. The Dow closed up 289 points. Gold has been breaking records this year, and now silver is right behind it. B&M Bloomberg's Morella Fernandez has the details.
All that glitters isn't gold. Silver reached a new high today, lifting mining stocks. Spot silver reached $56.50 US an ounce today. It started the year under $30. It floated Endeavour silver shares almost 13% higher. Aya Gold and Silver up 12%. First Majestic Silver up 11% today. Lower silver inventories have sent prices soaring recently. Here are the closing numbers for the day. The Canadian dollar is up to 71.57. West Texas Intermediate crude is down a dime to 58.55. Western Canadian Select is unchanged today. And the TSX gained 186 points for the third record close of the week. Those are your business headlines. I'm Morella Fernandez.
No records being broken in the weather, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah, because it'd be record cold for tonight.
Yeah.
It is chilly out here. It's damp as well. We've had a mixture of some scattered showers and flurries moving through various parts of the Maritimes. Remember that in a lot of cases, tonight's low temperatures are headed down towards or a few degrees below the freezing mark. So you want to be careful about maybe any wet surfaces around becoming a little bit icy as we move through those nighttime hours. Let's take a look at a viewer picture for tonight. And this is a beautiful one. It's coming in from sunset, not this evening, but must have been an evening prior, from Robert Zirkle. I want to thank Robert very much for sharing this picture with us. And it's coming in from Miramichi, New Brunswick. Now, for Miramichi for tomorrow, it's a mix of sun and cloud. Start off the day, temperatures will be a couple degrees below zero. In the afternoon, high temperature only near 2 degrees, and there'll be a little bit of a gusty west wind. Day planner for tomorrow across the Maritime region. Morning temperatures, you're looking at them here, mostly in the range around -4 to 0 across the region. Partly cloudy conditions. There is going to be a chance of flurries for tomorrow in Prince Edward Island, northern eastern areas of Nova Scotia, including the North Shore and Cape Breton, and southwestern areas of Nova Scotia. Those flurries will be generated by the colder wind coming in over the open ocean waters. High temperatures for tomorrow around the Maritimes expected to be mostly between -2 and +2. And those winds that I mentioned, they'll have some gusts between 30 and 50 kilometers per hour. Let's find out what's coming up next week on Your Morning Atlantic.
Monday on Your Morning Atlantic, Canadian Sparkle.
Are diamonds on your grown-up Christmas list? We asked the experts at English Jewelers about buying Canadian diamonds.
That's coming up Monday on Your Morning Atlantic.
Then at 6 o'clock Monday, digital dollars. Black Friday is basically come and gone now. But is Cyber Monday actually the bigger bonanza for holiday shopping? We'll speak with an expert Monday at 6. And finally for us this evening, everything is getting more expensive, including Mona Lisa's smile. The Louvre Museum in Paris has announced a 45% price hike on the entrance tickets for non-European visitors. Starting in mid-January, one ticket for someone who is not part of the European Economic Area will cost the equivalent of $52 Canadian. Officials say this move is being brought in and will raise about $20 million a year, which will be used for upgrades and improvements, probably some security upgrades in there too, given what's happened at the Louvre. Nearly 9 million people paid a visit to the Louvre last year. And that is our look at the day here at home. Bruce Frisco is on the main network of CTV at 11:30. CTVNewsAtlantic.ca has our weekend reporting. We leave you in a winter wonderland with the names of everyone here. I'm Todd Battis. Hope to see you Monday. Good night.
CTV News, the Maritime's #1 newscast.